This is the official broadcasting of the Spartan Sprint 2025 World Championships in Sprint in Hvar, Croatia. And this voiceover intends to cover the entire track based on the elite race broadcast, including my memories and my experiences on this sprint track. So here we can see the elite women start. We had to run about 1 kilometer on this boardwalk, which was covered with stone. So it was quite slippery at times. We had to start off really, really fast, like the elite women. I started at 10:20 in the morning with age group women 45 plus. My intention was to run this first kilometer of the sprint track as fast as possible, not to overrun it, because that could backfire pretty quickly, but to be one of the first, at least in the first 3 women, to get to the first swim, because as I was analyzing the entire track, and as I was looking at the first swim section of this course, I figured it would be the easiest to come up to it within the first 3 women. Here we had to go down to the shore and get into the water, which wasn't really cold. After the run, I didn't even feel it being uncomfortable for a moment. So we were swimming here. I figured that passing anybody here that would be a slower swimmer than I was would have taken up too much energy. So this is why I wanted to come here, to arrive here among the first women, so I don't have to overtake anybody who's a worse swimmer than I am. I took my swim goggles with me because I swim quite often, so I have a good swim goggle, comfortable to use, and I'm comfortable in swimming with it. I didn't really utilize it that much at this part of the track on the first swim, much rather the second and the third swims. But I had it on, I put it on, and then it was an easy, I would say 600 and 700 meters of swim here. For sure, who is swimming on a regular basis, like I am, had quite of an advantage here. People who are not really good swimmers or don't swim at all were at a disadvantage for sure. They were utilizing the rope to pull themselves, but even in that case, I think they must have moved way slower compared to the people who practice swimming. So we had to come out here, back onto the boardwalk, and do a little bit of running, of course, in wet clothes. And then we were directed onto a pebble beach with small pebbles. Fortunately, not sand, because that would have been really uncomfortable in the shoes. So we had to come back here, run a little bit on the pebble beach, and then do a wall. I don't know what it translates to feet, maybe 6-foot wall, I don't know, but it's 180 centimeters, the same height as I am. So here we see the elite ladies running somebody running in a swim cap, which must have been quite uncomfortable after a while. I don't really get that choice, but it must have made sense to some of the ladies because I've seen quite a few running in swim cap and in a swimsuit. But personally, I think that's really uncomfortable when you're not swimming, and most of the track, 95% of the track was running or some obstacles. Here we see, I think, the elite racers. This is a Dutch lady called Elsa. She was leading almost all the way. Oh, here they just let us down onto the rocks. It was rocky. It was slippery. So I decided to slow down a little bit here, which didn't result in losing that much time, but I felt it was way safer than running as fast as on the boardwalk. And then it was just a few minutes before we head back to the boardwalk, and then more really fast running in the age group heat that I started in. There was a very fast lady in another age group category. She was first. I think I must have been second or third or fourth here within the entire heat. I was pretty much racing against or with another Hungarian lady in the same age group that I was in. So we were back and forth passing each other. I think in this specific part I was leading, but I didn't want to overdo the running to the point where it was too much, but it was still really fast. It's a flat course, so everybody was pushing it really hard. Here we had to run up, and then the second obstacle came, which was running with a log and then swim with the same log, and then quite a bit of running back, and then place the log to the same spot. And that was about, in my estimation, a little less than 1 kilometer, the entire thing. The log is not really a heavy thing in and of itself, but when you're running with it and trying to accomplish the same speed as you were before, it can get quite uncomfortable after a while. So the goal was here to do 80% of the tempo that you did before without the log, running wise, and try to break free from your competition as much as possible, which I personally couldn't do because the lady I was racing with in the same age group was almost as fast here as I was. So she was dictating the same tempo. I couldn't get faster than her that much. It's fully flat here, a concrete pavement. So one could think it would make sense to run this entire race in normal running shoes instead of trail shoes, which crossed my mind for sure. But as I was testing my shoe on some of the rocks, some of the rocky parts, the stones, the gravel, it was quite slippery. So at the end of the day, I decided for the trail shoes. So here, as you can see, we ran down to a small bay area. You had to jump in. I decided to have both of my arms free, so I took the log and put it in between my legs like a pool boy. And it was between my legs and a little bit under my belly, and I pulled it that way. Whoever's used to swimming a lot, especially with the pool boy, I think it makes perfect sense, because then you have both of your arms free as opposed to pushing the log with one hand right next to you and you only have one arm free. And I think I could even overtake one or two ladies here at this part of the track, which was the second swim. I used my swim goggles, which served me well. And the name of the game is here to get in the water before most of your competition is jumping in, because otherwise you get a lot of feet in your face, a lot of splashing. It's hard to overtake, almost no chance to impossible. Or even if you can overtake, it takes up way too much energy, and you cannot start running in the same tempo as you would have expected. So this first part of the course, you have to just, I think, the best idea is just to push it as much as you can. And then I wouldn't say I rested a little bit while I was swimming, but it's just a different push. And you can get, if you are an experienced swimmer, you can get a breather here. If not, then that's just gonna wear you down even more. So whoever's preparing for Spartan Sprint World Championships, I would highly advise you to go practice swimming as much as you can. I did it for an entire year, once a week. But then again, I have swimming experience too, so it's probably easier for me than for the average. But even if I wouldn't have experience, I would have done it anyways. So it's highly advisable, because it's 3 long swims. You got to be comfortable with it. So here, back to the course, a lot of stairs, then quite a bit of running back with the log, and then it's a little bit of circle at this part of the track until you get back to the position where you picked up the log. I don't know if there's any way you can practice swimming with a log, but maybe. I'm not really sure it makes much sense, but swimming, I think, makes perfect sense to practice. So here was a lot of running. I think I was here first before my competition. She was right behind me, I think. I don't know how far at this point, but this is pretty much the end of, yes, it's the end of the log carry. So we had to run down here, and then the next part of the track will be running uphill all the way to the castle, which is quite the run because it's steady uphill, very high pulse, especially because the first part of the track also takes out a lot because you push it as much as possible. So here Another skill is required, which is running uphill. And my experience is not a lot of people are very skilled at running uphill because it's very, very tiring. It's very, very tough on the body. So nobody really likes to practice it. I am not a huge fan of practicing uphill runs myself, but I do it anyways because I know it serves me well. So I do it a couple times a year. I wouldn't say I do it every week or every other week, but quite a few times a week. A year. Yes, so we are seeing one of the top elite racers here, Zuzana Kutsumova. She's great. She's the same age as I am, but totally different body. She was an Olympic racer, national team racer, so she's quite a different game in terms of what her body can do compared to the average. And the Dutch lady, Elsa, demonstrating quite a solid run here. In terms of me and my competition, the lady that I ran up against the entire race, we ran quite the same speed here. In fact, she was better than I was running uphill, which took me by surprise a little bit because I thought I was really good at it, but she was even better. So she passed me here somewhere at this point. So I was kind of looking at her back from here on out until we were running downhill at the castle with the sandbag. So it was really a mind game at this point for me. Yeah, we can see the castle where we ran up to. So here it was a mind game for me not to be in the right headspace in terms of my running and my race, how to be strategic but not to overdo it. So it took a lot. Here there was quite a few flight of stairs, which I quite enjoyed, much more than running steady up. But you can see here on the elite ladies, it's tiring. It wears you out. And at this point, we were all dry almost. The weather was perfectly spot on, 25, 26 degrees Celsius. We started even later than them. I think the elite ladies started around 9 in the morning, and we started 10:20. So it was even more sunny and warmer. The weather was really, really good. It served us well. You can never estimate the weather of a Spartan race because it's always outside. It can be rainy, it can be sunny, it can be stormy, it can be windy, sometimes even snowy. We've seen it all. We've seen it all. But this was just perfect. So they're still running uphill, and there will be one obstacle here, which will be, I think, another wall the same size as we've seen before, 180 centimeters, the same height I am. So I don't know what that translates to in foot or feet, 6 feet maybe. So we were running quite a bit. Here's the wall. It's an easy obstacle for all of the age group and elite athletes. And then came a little bit of downhill run. So even a faster tempo here, and then uphill again until we reached a flight of stairs. And then this area was the last part of the track uphill, which was quite rocky, stones, gravel, cactuses. So you had to really pay attention to where you step, and to have a controlled run. It's quite technical, but if you practice trail runs on mountains, that's going to serve you well here. So that's the gravel part. And then all the way up to the castle. Here, my competition was in front of me. So I kind of looked at her back the entire time. There was no way to overtake. And to be honest with you, I couldn't really keep up with her at this point. So I was not going to overtake her either way. I was just waiting for the right moment. And I tried to not to over push myself too hard, because in a sprint, even nuances matter. At least that's my experience. So here there was a little bit of even a rockier part, very, very technical, next to some construction area. And then you will see when they pass this building on the right, there's a curve, and then there are quite a few obstacles coming up. The Z-wall, an elevated monkey, slack line, rope climb, inverted wall, and then all the way to the top of the castle, which will be the long sandbag carry. So here the first elite lady, Elsa, is approaching the Z-walls. There are 4, and you can go on either side. The name of the game is not to let go or step off of the walls, and then successfully go over it and then ring the bell. I normally do it the other way around, with my right hand first. So we ran down, and here I think the way Zuzana is doing it, I'm doing it exactly the same way. You just need to make sure that your hands and feet are not wet, because it's easy to slide off. And you don't want to do a penalty over here, because if you're focused enough and you're not way too quick, then this is an easy obstacle at most times. So slack line, yes, that's a rope. It's a balance skill. And this is the elevated monkey. I personally couldn't do the elevated monkey. It's just, it's in my head the wrong way. So I had to do the penalty loop here, but I successfully done the slack line, which I have practiced quite a lot. That's something I think you can master after practicing, which is probably true for the elevated monkey too. It's just sometimes you have blockers in your head. Rope climb, I hate it. This black rope is way too thin and way too slippery. Inverted wall, yes, it's inverse. And then you need to go over it. And once you've done it, we did run, the rope. It's the most horrible for me personally. I hate it. Yes, and the inverted wall again. That's easy for me because of my height. I can do it fairly easier than the shorter ladies. And then here we run all the way to the top of the castle. Get a sandbag, which is 15 kilos, probably about 30 pounds is what it translates to. And then a very long run with the sandbag. It was an easy a kilometer of run, and it's not only downhill, uphill. The last part of the sandbag carries a really tough uphill climb, very steep, next to cactuses and castle walls, so it's hard to overtake. No, it's actually virtually impossible to overtake, but you have to keep up your speed even on that steep uphill because you know the competition is behind you. It's tough because this is heavy to run with, for one. For two, it's impossible to do it in a way where you're not holding on to the sandbag on both sides. However, there's a thin part where you can hold on to it, so it kind of tires your grip a lot. But you have to hang on to it really, really tightly, because if you drop it, it's going to take up a lot of energy to pick it up and start running with it again. So you don't want to drop it if it's not absolutely necessary. Like when we were climbing up the steep hill, we had to put it down a couple of times because it was so hard to climb up on the walls, or there was a ladder on the ladder where you needed both of the hands. So this is still the castle. So here they are coming out of the castle, and the view is really good on from this drone shot, where there's a zigzag where you had to run down. And here is the point where I managed to pass my competition. I don't know whether she was too tired to run downhill, or in any way it was uncomfortable for her to run downhill. I don't know, because a lot of people don't like to run downhill. I personally love it. So I was really in my element running down here, even with the sandbag. So quite, I think at this point, at the next turn, I managed to pass her, and she was right behind me the entire time. You know, if on a race like this, you kind of manage to have an eye on your neck a little bit at this point, but you can feel if there's somebody really, really close behind you. So this is the point where we reached the very steep uphill. You can see here they're putting down the sandbag and then climbing up, and then putting it down one more time and then climb up. Here's the ladder. I did it the same way, and most probably everybody else did like them, but it takes up a lot of energy to put down, pick up. And yeah, there's a third time they're putting it down. So here's the uphill part, impossible to take over. It's very rocky. It's very narrow. It's very demanding. So I remember very clearly that at this point I was quite drained, and mentally and physically as well. So I was really fighting with myself here to keep up the pace and not to lose my mindset. And still quite a little bit to the top, because there will be a part where there's a narrow path, cactuses on one side, and the castle wall on the other side. And that was the toughest part before the top for me too. I wish I could have enjoyed this view, but to be honest with you, I was looking down, head down, and just counting my steps, counting back the time of my misery coming up this part. Oh, it was miserable. The view is gorgeous though, looking back at it. But I didn't look back because I had to watch my step. I had to watch my tempo, not to slow down. But I was quite miserable at this point. And that's the top where they start running a little bit more. Yeah, volunteers here already. So they're orienting everybody towards the spot where you need to put the sandbag down. Oh, and misery over. You can start running downhill, and here comes the part where there's going to be a little bit technical. This is why this is where the street shoes are not going to serve you well, because it's rocky, it's technical, there are stones. You really need to watch your step here. So this is exactly why I decided for the trail shoes. And then at this point, I started prepping myself mentally that there's going to be a very tough downhill run on the max as fast as possible from here on out until we get down back to the boardwalk. As you can see, the elite ladies are pushing to the max here as well, which I have done as much as I could. My competition was behind me still at this point. I don't know how far she was, but I'm guessing not far, 1 or 2 seconds. So probably as close as Zuzana and Elsa was in this elite race. Not more than that. So she was exactly the same skill runner as I am, or she is. I don't know where the other ladies were. I don't remember who was in front of me. I didn't really see anyone. So they must have been way quicker, or I just don't remember. So here we came out of the castle, and then the next part of the run from here on down will be by the houses. Stairs, flight of stairs, endless flight of stairs down. And just between the houses where people were having their morning cup of coffee, or tourists were walking, or I don't know, they were just watching or cheering. Yeah, there was restaurants and mainly houses. So that was an exciting part of the track for me. I really enjoy running down. And here we came back to the main square where the 100-meter track was built up. There's the medic tent. So here's the point where my competition passed me. She could do a way quicker tempo here than I did. And at this point, my mindset was I could have ran a little bit faster here if I wanted to. But I decided not to and just run my organic best tempo that was still comfortable for me, because at this point I already knew that between her and I, since we have the same, very similar to the same skills, probably the spear throw will be the deciding factor. So from here on out, I let her run a little bit faster, and I decided to start prepping myself mentally for the spear throw. I kind of started, and it's a fair question, how do you prepare yourself mentally while you're running to hit the spear throw? Yeah, I could, and I can, and I do that a lot of times because I'm a strategic person, and I always like to organize everything in my head before and even while I'm running. Sometimes you have to just restructure your head many times. So I was prepping for that spear throw. I knew it was going to be floating. I knew it was going to be harder to hit than average because it was floating. Plus, it was one of the last obstacles, and I knew I was going to be worn down and tired. My best hope was that since there was a swimming section before the spear throw and after, that the other ladies were not so skilled swimmers as I was, and that even was going to wear them down even more, probably a little bit, than I will be. So I was contemplating on that at this point. So we're almost down back on the boardwalk. Here it was just an endless run where I was speculating on how the turnout will be, preparing for the spear throw and the last 8 or 9 obstacles that were coming up. So pretty much a long run, some obstacles on top of the castle, another long run, and then the second half of the obstacles down by the sea. So this is the point where they turn back onto the boardwalk. There's a lot of spectators cheering on everybody, so it felt quite good and motivating here. So we ran down at this part. There were Hungarian volunteers at the hurdle. Wasn't even hurdles. Normally it's hurdles. 3 of these, but now it was just a hurdle over it and then back into the water, which felt quite good after a long run like that. It was sunny, it was warm. The water was very pleasant. Here I utilized my swim goggles again. I put them on and I swam here with the goggles. I think I did front crawl here. Water's beautiful, crystal clear. Quite a bit of a stretch to swim. And again, for those people who are not as experienced in swimming, this must have been a tough part after a long run like that. That must have worn everybody down. For me, it was pleasant, especially after that long run. I think, as far as I have a clear memory, that was kind of a breather for me here. And again, I was looking forward to the spear throw. At this point, my competition was already at the spear. And here, as I was crawling out of the water, from the corner of my eye, I saw that she missed. Really, it was a split of a second where I noticed that. So I kind of put on my big girl pants, turned on my laser sharp focus, and I approached the second spear from the last, the same one where Zuzana is pulling out. And there are different techniques. Some of the girls do it way from the back, walking up to get a momentum from that. Yeah, she misses. She has to do the spear throw. This is a totally different technique where you utilize the body. That didn't work either. So both Elsa and Zuzana are doing 30 burpees. And there's another lady in the back who's doing also 30 burpees. It turns out after the race that the age group athletes only had to do 15, which was strange to me because we never had to do 15 except for stadium races. So while the elite athletes had to do 30 burpees, the age groupers only had to do 15. And I didn't really realize that only after the race. So coming up here, my competition was doing the burpees. I thought it was 30. And then I hit the spear. Thank God I did. So I was really, really happy about that. And in my estimation, I had about a minute and a half before her time advantage compared to her at this point. But in reality, it was like more like 40 seconds. Yeah, this was almost me doing the same thing, hitting the spear and then being really happy and then jumping into the water to do the second half of the swim, where I was really, really happy. So in my mind, I thought I had about a minute and a half of advantage. In reality, it was more like 40 seconds. So I was swimming really, really happily when the spear went in. It was a really, really happy swim for me. And then the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 obstacles was still ahead of us. And I knew there was the multi-rig with 2 ropes. We were completely wet. So there was a fair chance that I'm not going to be able to do it. So there was a penalty loop right next to the multi-rig with a chain carry. And I kind of did a small calculation in my head that that's going to take about 20 to 25, tops 30 seconds to do. So if I fail and I need to do the penalty loop, I will still have 10 seconds of advantage if everything goes right. 10 to 15 at least, which could work So we were coming out here to do the A-frame cargo, which is not a hard obstacle, but it takes time to do. And you're wet and you're tired, and it's really, really close. Also for the elite athletes, but it was also very close for us. First, second, and third ranks on the podium. So this is basically a bar, horizontal bar, 3 rings, and 2 ropes at the end. Slippery, thin ropes. So there's the penalty loop on the left. I did that. Of course, the elite ladies, they're very, very good and skilled and practice a lot. So one goes with the chicken wing technique, the other one's with normal technique, and of course they can do it. So here, after this penalty loop, there was a sprint, a stairway to Sparta, which is not a hard obstacle, but it takes time. Here you can see there is like split of a second's difference between the ladies. Sprint here, absolute sprint all the way to the end. Slip wall, the ropes were quite high, so, and it was wet. I struggled here just a little bit, lost some time, but after I could get over it, it was just a vertical cargo, climbed down, and I knew I did it at this point. And then just sprint into the finish. Yes. So the same experience for me. It was great. Was just an audio diary for myself. Best race of my life.